Okay, hang on. It's just popping things up for me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. Hey everybody, we are live with the mental health warriors, and today we're talking about generational trauma. Let's get this show started. I think I hit the wrong intro, but whatever. Adam isn't here, so let's just go with it.
You're in charge.
Oh, goodness gracious. Yes, I totally hit the wrong button, but whatever. Technology, it is what it is, and it doesn't matter because those of you tuning in, you are here, and today we are talking about generational trauma, a topic that Adam had told me, guess what you get to do? So we will just have to give him a hard time when he is back next week, and he is well prepared for it already because him and I have already chatted about it. So today we've got David joining us and Nick and Janet, but let's kick it off. David, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm the founder of Awake Warrior. I do men's coaching and recently added women to the roster. I help professional men, mainly entrepreneurs and CEOs, some athletes and entertainers who are struggling with managing challenging times with stress, anxiety, and burnout. So they're looking for more different ways how to manage life struggles and challenges with work and life and in general, help them come to a place of balance and calm and inner peace in their lives.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Janet, how about you tell us a little bit about you?
I'm what I call myself a post-traumatic growth advocate. After I went through my challenges, I found there was nobody to help me keep moving forward. And so for those that have gone through treatment and really want to keep moving forward, that's where I come in. We need to keep moving forward, finding another purpose after we've, gotten rid of our pain, so to speak. We take that piece out. We need to replace it with something else and hopefully more positive.
I love that. I love that. Hi, Guy. Thanks for joining us.
Well, sorry, I'm a few minutes late. Forgot you had to log in through Google Chrome.
Well, no worries. I played the wrong intro for the whole start of the podcast, so no problem.
Hello, Ashley. Hello, Nick, Janet, David, Nance. Hey, Nancy, how are you?
Made it. I made it.
And she's wearing Winnie the Pooh. I love it. I love it.
Wow.
I jumper.
On ice skates in July.
Right.
That is the weather here in Edmonton, Alberta right now. It is a balmy 16. Last week it was 26.
Wow. It was 30-something too last week. Yeah. So it's really cooled off, which is nice for a change.
Adapting. I'm just going to say adapting. I don't know if I'll agree that it's nice, but adapting.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm glad that you guys are here joining us. So, Guy, tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
A little bit about me. Oh, boy, that's long and detailed. Let's see. What do I do right now? I'm in network marketing is what I do full time. But my history is F-16 fighter pilot for 20 years with the United States Air Force. I then transitioned over to Southwest Airlines after doing that. I flew as a captain there for 13 years. And retired early because of our business. I've also wrote that book right there, Discovering Your Authentic Truth, which is an Amazon bestseller. I think Nancy has at least started reading. I don't know if you finished it or not, but
oh gosh, no, it started.
But yeah, so and the Discovering Your Authentic Truth is where this kind of comes in line with what with what you're doing here with the Mental Health Warriors course with Adam is how I found out about y'all. And I think it's just wonderful what you're doing. But my background's going to be a little bit more in NLP basics. And so I just love helping people. I love letting people know that there's a better way outside or a possible better approach outside of Western psychology or psychiatry that can really get to the root issues of mental issues or challenges that people are having. And when Adam mentioned this topic, I got really super excited because one of the things we do deal with is generational trauma, and it's very real. I mean, the epigenetics study from Switzerland, what's the Genome Project? I mean, where they proved that, like say things like anger can be passed down generationally through the mice, and everything else that we've learned since then. It really excites me to know that there's other possibilities.
I love that. Nick, tell us about you.
Yes. Well, I'm I guess I work in helping my brand Secret Influence. I work with supporting coaches, consultants, therapists, share their message, grow their sort of brand, get their message out there. And yeah, so very much about helping them reach a wider audience and grow their brand and their message. So yeah, I work with a lot of therapists, a lot of coaches, a lot of people, health coaches, a lot of mental health therapists and things. Yes, I'm very passionate about mental health and personal development. I write a lot of blogs and speak a lot about it. So my brand Secret Influence. So anything I can do to help people share the message and grow the influence and persuasion skills to share the message is what I do.
Awesome. Okay, Nancy, you're up.
Well, I'm Nance. I'm Exponential Joy. Gosh, in regards to generational trauma, well, I'm a grief and trauma specialist. And with me in helping people balance their energies, I help them understand where their energies are out of alignment and what it would look like or feel like for them. We discover it together. What it would feel like to be in better alignment with the best possible version of yourself. Generational trauma goes back into centuries before you were born. You think about the generational trauma. I'm also a psychic medium. So think about the generational trauma of a psychic medium. That goes back a long, long, long way. How many times have I been ostracized for being different, not fitting in? And then we numb the pain through alcohol, drugs, shopping, cigarettes, gambling, sex. So as much as I understand that there is a scientific component, there's a heart component that goes much deeper.
Yeah. Wow, I love that. So, are we ready to really kick off the topic and discuss generational trauma more in depth? Like, what are some things that we can see in individuals that would indicate they might be suffering with a trauma of some sort or some sort of generational curse, if you will? Who wants to kick it off?
I'll start off with a story. I'll start off with this. We know scientifically that in vitro, in uterus, that an embryo will catch on to some of the trauma the mother has and carrying them. And there was nothing stronger to confirm that with me than when my husband was going to go to Poland with his sister. He had never been. He was made in Poland, born in Germany, raised in Canada. And he had never really wanted to go, but I thought it would be good for him to see family and relatives over there. And got his ticket and everything. He's going with his sister. He speaks the language and everything. His mother and father escaped from Poland. Les's dad was sentenced to death in absenteeism by communists in Poland. And they escaped out of Poland when she was pregnant with him and slept during the day and ran at night. Les was born in a camp in Germany. And so you want to know how strong that trauma is, even though it doesn't show outwardly. He was supposed to leave May 30th. April, he was diagnosed with colon cancer. May 30th, he had his surgery and got 100% of the cancer while his sister was on a plane to Poland. You can't tell me that your body doesn't create to avoid some things. And he created it pretty darn strong.
I got goosebumps. Oh my gosh.
And he's cancer-free. Like, it was stage 2. And like I say, within 2 months, he had his surgery and it was all gone. But he had his surgery the day his sister got on that plane to fly to Poland.
Wow. That is, wow. I don't even know that I necessarily have words for that. But I have heard that as far as the body creating, especially when we're put under stressful environments for so long, or we're under chronic inflammation, that the body will create disease. And what is the root to all disease? It's that chronic inflammation. It's those stressors. It's the taxing on the body. I have a doctor friend who says it's trauma, toxins, and thoughts. And sick moms create sick babies is one of the things he always talks about. So, like you said, when you're in utero, or if you're sick as a woman, as a childbearing woman, that's going to carry into that fetus. So it is one of those things that I am always thinking about when you hear the high rates of infertility and all of the medical conditions that come with children born that are sick or anything like that. Well, what was the condition of mom's body during pregnancy or even before that?
Mm-hmm.
Mom's thoughts. Mom's
Yeah.
thoughts.
Everything.
Mom's thoughts. I'm not ready for this. I can't handle this. I don't know what to do with this. I remember when I became pregnant with my first biological son, and it wasn't the plan. I had previously lost twins in vitro, and I had decided to go back to school. As an adult student, I was going to become a labor arbitrator, and I was going to help the union and management be friends and hold hands and skip through the daisy patch and all that wonderful stuff that my beautiful young mind believed was possible. And then I started fainting. I started dating a guy, like nothing serious, started fainting, and I found that I was pregnant. And the birth itself, I did the pregnancy mostly on my own. The father of the child was a little bit about it. Later on, we continued our relationship and had more children. But my body, my cervix, would not soften. My cervix would not soften. They did everything. They massaged it. They added creams. They did all those things. My body would not soften. I was so afraid. Even though I wanted my son more than anything else, I was terrified. Not on the outside. On the outside, I was fine. I was good. I was great. But my body was not birthing that child. And the trauma of that birth to both my son and I was extraordinary. The trauma. Yeah.
Right.
Ashley, you had said, how do you know? I think was one of the ways that you phrased that question. How do you know if somebody is experiencing generational trauma? In the work that we do, we have this one exercise, if you will. It's called timeline therapy, where we take it back a person to the very first occurrence of, let's say, a negative emotion like anger, sadness, fear, guilt, or shame. And to find that, and to get the doorway to open for the subconscious mind, one of the things that will we'll do is we'll ask a person, is this before, the first moment of anger was before or after birth? And then somebody may say before. And then you say, well, is it in the womb or before that? And they say before that. And as well, was it genealogy or was it past lifetime? And from my perspective, I don't really care whether a person doesn't believe in past lives or not. It doesn't matter, because it's how this is all coded in the mind, right? And my objective is to help release the trauma. So how the person's coding it, and if it's truly past lives or it's a genealogy, as long as we can get to the root of it, that's great. And it is amazing in the process of asking these questions when you're really having a conversation more with the subconscious mind than the conscious mind. Because conscious mind, especially if a person doesn't believe in past lives, is not going to come up with it. But it is amazing. Even people like, well, I don't believe in past lives. And you're doing this little bit of an exercise with them, they'll come up with past lives. And then you ask, like, how many past lives ago? And some people come up with like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, 100 years, centuries. And it's just really interesting. And all of that is in the mind, whether they're consciously aware of it or not. It is phenomenal. And when you can just go and you see this in a person, and you see it more than once, again and again and again with many different people, I absolutely believe that, there's a lot more to this than just quote unquote the science, like Nancy said. There's a lot more going on here. And that is one of the ways that we are able to unearth, whether it is, within this person's own lifetime, maybe it was a previous lifetime, maybe it was passed down genealogically. So anyhow, it's just interesting.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think everyone has had trauma in their lives. There's different levels of trauma. I was reading, are you guys familiar with Dr. Gabor Mate? He wrote a book, The Myth of Normal, and he actually talked about the birthing process in the Western world is actually traumatic for every baby, because the baby's brought into the world with like bright lights and a doctor, and it's just not a natural process as it was, say, 50, 100 years ago. So I think everyone in this world has a degree of trauma, and there's different levels of trauma. You asked about what some of the signs are. Some of the obvious signs that you see with people with some serious trauma, you see addiction and maybe isolation, and it can lead to suicide. I know suicides are one of the highest rates of suicide right now is men between 45 and 54 years old. And because a lot of times they just haven't taken the time to look at that trauma and release it through a number of different methods. But other cases, there's trauma that people have that can be masked. Like there's a lot of hard work. Like I was a successful business guy for many years, and I had a lot of trauma. So it can be plain as the light is day, and it also can be very masked in people that maybe they don't think they're good enough, so they mask that with success in business or other areas of their life.
Great.
Janet, I think that you could speak to the startle response.
To the what?
The startle response? First responders, when first responders when you've got someone that has been accustomed to so much violence and trauma, from going on to scenes where there is a battered woman situation, where there is a gunpoint. It is over and over and over and over, and then that startle response comes, and they're quickly agitated, and then their levels of we get activated. I prefer activation over trigger. We get activated. We're driving down the road and Buddy cuts us off and we behave in a certain manner, And when there is that overreaction, when the window's rolled down and you're leaning out the window,
mm-hmm.
and you're telling the guy next door to you how you really feel, that might be an indicator.
There's so much, and what Guy talked about timeline therapy, and NLP, and that is so true. And I'll even go back to there's so much evidence of this, so much I was talking to somebody the other day that she had a child of rape and now that child is out of control and having her own trauma. Like, you just we can't recognize sometimes, and that goes, Nancy, when you talk about as a first responder, we don't always have time or believe or trained that some of these people that are acting out, it's a trauma that's happened before. And David, you mentioned about that trauma just birth, but I know even myself, and I definitely believe in reincarnation, but we can change that a little bit too, because all generational females down the line all carry, an ache, and they carry that, their DNA, from generation to generation to generation. And so, especially for females who have trouble with birth or pregnancy or all kinds of what you'd call female pain and suffering in that, you think about your grandparents or your great grandparents and talk about home births, or you talk about just think of the generational trauma coming from people who were in Auschwitz that had all of those experimental surgeries done to their bodies and then went on to have, to survive. But it just is, I just believe so much in it, and it's just evidence. I don't think you need science so much to say that it's true. Guy, it's just what you talked about. I've seen that when I did my training too, and we just don't know. It's so subconscious until we bring it to the conscientious level that we can change things, and that's. And you know what? We all deal with it. I don't think there's a first responder out there that hasn't gone through trauma that made them wanted to serve. You can talk to that guy, even your flying combat and stuff. There has to be a place where, what's that strength to make us want to serve? What's that place we want to make better for somebody else?
Yeah. I mean, for me, the flying was a calling, and I had a blast doing it. But there's trauma definitely that has occurred from that. I had some pretty alarming issues that came up while I was flying, for sure. But and I think and you just touched on it, Janet, is that the good news about all this, and regardless of where the trauma came from, an individual is suffering with it. And the good news is there are tools out there to completely wipe out the trauma, whether it happened as a first responder or if it happened happened in past lives or genealogically. It doesn't matter. A person that's suffering with trauma today, right now, in this place, in this space, there is help. And there are ways to be able to release that trauma so that a person can go on living a healthy life without it. That, I think, to me, that's a breath of fresh air for anybody that's out there listening and is in this place. There are answers
if they choose it. Now, that's the biggest thing, is to recognize there is an issue, but to choose where you want to go. We all have choice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges for people seeking healing is our Western medical system. Probably one of the most advanced in the world when it comes to life-threatening situations. You're in a car accident, you need medical assistance. But when it comes to allopathic medicine, I think the Western system is failing people, because I don't think these professionals are taught to deal with trauma. They're taught they're not taught at all. So people, I think the challenge for people right now is finding the right people to help them work through this trauma. In my experience, the Western psychotherapy method didn't work either. Like talking. I mean, going into the subconscious, doing past life regressions and things like that, I think is very powerful. But for a lot of people, trauma is held in the body. It's held at the cellular level. And I think for what I do with people and what helped me heal was doing some somatic energy work. So getting into the body. Like, I think the true healing starts to happen when we connect with the heart and the body. And we're not trained, especially as professionals in North America, we're taught to solve problems in our head. So we're really cut off from our body. So I think the experience I have with working with others, when they start to heal, is when they really start to connect with their body. So doing embodiment practices like breath work, meditation, qigong, screaming, yelling, just moving, getting some of the stuff moved out through the body. So the challenge right now for a lot of people is that there's not a lot of people that have that sort of training. So it's a lot of Western diagnose, take a pill, kind of get better, and they're left, struggling.
I disagree that there aren't a lot of people that have that training. There are many of us that have that training. We are now given the opportunity to speak about that training more often. We're becoming more confident in our ability to speak about that.
I'm talking about the medical system. They're not trained in dealing with them at all.
Oh no, the medical system has its limitations. It's a beautiful system for diagnosis. If I break my arm, I'm going to the hospital.
Well, that's what I can have a diagnosis. I don't think people like you and I'm talking about the medical system out there is not trained to deal with trauma. Sorry, none.
Well, they're not allowed to share other options either. Their tongues are tied and their hands are bound because a doctor must prescribe medication. A doctor must perform surgery. Those are their options and their only options. So if we continue to think that the system is going to help us, we are going to remain a victim. There's a lot of money that is put into the system, and because we're taxed so highly as individuals, I'm from Canada, our taxation system sucks.
I'm from Canada as well.
Okay, so we get taxed and taxed and taxed and taxed. And then the expectation is that we're going to be able to get the services that are available to us. We don't get those services when it's in regards to mental health. We don't get those services for trauma. We don't get those services for recovery.
Or naturopathic choices.
We don't.
They're not covered. They're available, but you have to have out of pocket.
Pay out of your pocket. And you have to make a decision. Do you want the rest of your life to be the best of your life, or are you going to complain about the taxation system? I don't like the taxation system in any way, shape, or form, and I choose to spend my money wisely on my own wellness, because if I'm not operating well, my entire family is suffering, and the generational trauma will continue. The problem starts with me, and the solution is with me.
I think one thing about generational trauma is if you look at sort of a lot of research, a lot of people who have, for example, like addictions or go through abuse, there can be their parents have gone through it as well. They've had addicted parents or parents who've gone through abuse. I mean, obviously not a bit of generalized, not in all cases, but research shows a lot of people that's the case. So obviously trauma can be passed down, whether it's because someone's experienced that themselves, then it influences them, and then they then act out that same trauma and sort of pass it on. But I think the influence of the generations above. If you look up, for the first, we have so many influences. We go up from friends and work and social media, but from when we're young, from the day we're born until we're sort of early teens, the parents, the grandparents are the biggest influence. And certainly, I think that could be a positive influence, but it can also include any traumas they've experienced. And I think, sadly, that is often reflected where people, experience their own, challenging behaviors or traumas, and which reflects ones their parents or the grandparents have gone through. And there's that sort of sequence of often, gets passed down for generations. And I think that's something which, when somebody sort of therapists I work with who deal with people with traumas, it's trying to almost how can they break that cycle almost. Some of them say they're aware they don't want their kids to then be influenced by their sort of their own traumatic things. They don't want it to pass down to their kids in some way, or to be affected by it. So I think there's that's.
Well, if you look at the triangle that's around me, it's really interesting. You notice that there's a triangle around me?
Yeah.
Fellow, right? And I showed up a little bit late Guy showed up a little bit late. There's a distinctive connection here, because we've got an opportunity, like I said before, to make the change, and more people are making the change. We've got amazing healers in the house that are men. Women were the ones that were bringing this forward first, and more men are beginning to speak out about it. We need humanity, human beings, to step forward and offer solutions. I mean, I've got a wonderful accountability coach who's a man, and it took me a while to get into a place whereby I could trust a man, because I was scathed, and I could have stayed in that victimhood. I could have stayed in the victimhood that the medical system, all they're going to do is offer me another pill. And I had to become the black sheep, the colorful black sheep, I'm very colorful, who said no more, right? That said, enough poo, enough of this bullshit. I am no longer allowing this in my life. I'm going to make the change so that my children have a positive influence in their lives. My grandchildren have a positive influence in their lives. And that means that many people in my family look at me as, oh yeah, the wild child.
I mean, do you think, I don't know, Nancy, or you know, sometimes people love victims, or you know, or maybe the wrong word, but you know, of experience, really, you know, really, undoubtedly, you know, awful trauma in their lives. But it's how you define yourself. You know, whether you see yourself as a victim in that sense, you know, in which case, you know what I mean, or whether you see yourself as, you know, how are you sort of, like I think you said, you know, the moment you change the way you define yourself as someone who's experienced trauma, or someone's a victim of trauma, is that language, you know, the change of language and the way you define yourself needed for you to move on? I don't know.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. One common denominator in my life is me. I am a survivor. I'm a champion. I'm a warrior.
Very positive language, yeah. No.
Yeah.
Well, and going back to what something Janet said earlier, which kind of ties in with this too, that, you know, are you a cause or an effect? Are you taking responsibility for everything? And I like when you said that, Janet, that you have to have the desire. The person has to have the desire. When I first started going out there and helping people, it was because people were coming to me, and it was very easy because they were in a way ready, but you know, we still have to prepare them to be really ready for any kind of change to happen. But then you're like, I want to go out and save the world, right? And I want to help this person. I want to help that person, this alcoholic. I want to help this person. It's manic depressant. And I'm going to go save the world. And you find very quickly that ain't going to work. And you have to, that person, you know, so if somebody's out there and is really suffering from some severe trauma, the very first step, you know, you hear about the alcoholic hitting rock bottom, right? Because, you know, until they hit rock bottom, because when you hit the rock bottom, you don't have any other out. You've got suicide. I think David was mentioned that one. And then you've got, all right, I'm going to take responsibility. I'm ready for this change. I don't care what I have to do to make that happen. So desire is a very big part of that, and taking the getting to that point of wanting to take the responsibility is very difficult for a lot of people. And I found over the years that the depressed person is probably the hardest to shift them out of that frame of depression so that they can actually see there are other opportunities, there's other answers, there's other solutions other than being stuck inside that frame that they're stuck in, and they can't see a way out.
What's interesting about depression, and after a bad car accident I was in, and I'd been in several, I wasn't angry. And I had been angry at the other ones. And then I read a piece that said, depression is anger gone within. So how many of us are angry that we've just chosen to go in and just leave it there instead of, again, like screaming or yelling or pounding something to get it out of your body? Because really our bodies are meant to be in action. And when we're not in action, we get stuck somewhere. And there's so much. There's another saying, like, heal the mother, you heal the child, right? And I I chose to, it's not easy getting better. It's a choice, and it's a choice I've had to make several times after different things have happened, and the icing on the cake, or what, a cherry on the cake, whatever you call it, was the PTSD diagnosis. And then it was like, oh my God, I got to get better again. And it's like, how do I stay there? And that's when we have to surround ourselves with the people, not the naysayers, but the people that also want to go. It's a tribe of people that go forward. And I'm part of a group called The Power of Our Story. And we've healed so much together by sharing our stories. And they're all first responders, veterans of the military and stuff. And it's just, we need to do it together. And that's what's so group about this panel. It's sharing with people. We're all, 6 of us are from different parts of the world and different parts of what we believe is generational trauma or experienced. And so there's a help here. So anybody watching this, just seek it. There are people there that have gone through what they've gone through. And I think it's important for panels like this and different places where we come together and say, hey, you can do that. I'll be your cheerleader.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with Janet. And you know who you resonate with. You know who you resonate with. Like David was talking about somatic. If you haven't experienced somatic and you're curious about what somatic is, if you're curious, that's an indicator.
Mhm.
Check it out. Use ChatGPT. Find out what somatic training is. Take it a step further. Send David a message, right? Like if there's something there, take action. Do something about it. If you don't change anything, nothing's going to change. I didn't become exponential joy overnight. I was exponentially angry. I was exponentially broken. I was exponentially damaged. I was depressed. I was anxious. I was so many forms of everything. And I was an addict for a long time until until enough was enough, over and over and over again. And I had to begin investing and making decisions every day. And I still do self-care every day. Every day. Every day.
I like what Jan said about a tribe. I think when we experience any sort of trauma or mental health challenges, it's that you're alone, no one understands, no one knows what I'm going through, and we tend to look at very insular. And it's like when you said about anger, you're angry at other people, you're angry at yourself, but you become very insular. And I think it's that's why Alcoholics Anonymous groups I think work so well. Is you're with a tribe of people that may all have different levels, different experiences, but you're all there to support each other just by being in that environment and recognizing each other's challenges. And I think that's, what different things, different people tribe. We'll find the right tribe of people, who you can get that help from. But I think, the worst thing you can do is to go inwards and which is almost an automatic human thing, is to we have a challenge, we withdraw into ourselves. I think it's almost a human nature to do that. When obviously that's the worst thing to do. And I think, there's lots of different groups and people, as we know from this group, but I think finding a tribe of people who have shared experiences is one of the most powerful ways to move forward.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think connectivity brings more depth to the healing. So connecting with one person or even a group of others is even more powerful. My own connection happened in my mid-30s when I was burnt out, and I ended up at Deepak Chopra Center in San Diego, and there was a group of 10 of us. And everybody had something going on, whether it was cancer or burnout, or in my case, I was just career burnt out. And connecting with so many other people on that level of natural healing, to me, changed my entire direction and trajectory of my life. So I think if you do a retreat or you're in a group even like this, it can be quite powerful to get deeper into connection. And at the end of the day, everyone needs that to help heal, because a lot of times when people do hit a challenge, they tend to isolate themselves, and that can be the most dangerous place to be in, because when you're isolated, that can lead to the heavier addictions and the suicide and things that aren't too great to happen. So I think the first step for anybody who is out there that's maybe struggling is even to connect with one person. It could be and tell your story, and then if you can connect with a larger group, it can be more powerful.
Did you
And I
have to
think
step
the-
out of your comfort zone to get there? Sorry, Ashley. Did you have to step out of your comfort zone, David, to go to the Deepak Chopra Center?
Oh yeah, for sure. I was just numbing my pain with work and alcohol and relationships, and not in a good place. And it led the body. What's there another doctor that talks about the body doesn't lie. Once you suppress a lot of this energy, it gets stuck in the body. And when it gets stuck in the body for too long, it leads to disease in the body. So that's why I love the work of movement, because when you start moving the body, you can tell where some of the emotions are. You're holding them. So qigong is a wonderful practice for people to see where they're holding, because breath and movement doesn't lie. If you're holding something, as soon as you try and move and breathe, your body's going to tell you where exactly that is. And when you start to release some of that, that can be quite enlightening for people.
Yeah.
Like that. I think one of the things that is interesting to me is, how do you know if it's a learned behavior versus it's somebody that's truly dealing with trauma? So take anger, for example. If you have parents that one was a stuffer and one was more of the vocal exploder, and then as an adult, that's how you behave, is that generational or is that learned?
I think a little both.
You might be presupposed to that reaction or that response because of the generational.
Yeah, I would say generational, because more than likely the parents that were acting that behavior probably saw it from their parents. Usually you see repetitive patterns in family histories. So you'll see, for example, I have a friend of mine who's married with children. The children are young and he's not happily married, but he's staying in the marriage till the kids get old. And his parents did the exact same with him. I'm not sure about the grandparents, but usually if you go back 2 or 3 generations, there's a lot of repetitive behaviors.
Well, and think about the abused child, right? And then they become the abused parent abusing their children. And it just keeps going down the pipeline. Somebody somewhere has got to break the chain. And this guy goes back to what we were talking about earlier, but I believe the chain can be broken, especially in that subject area. But it's not necessarily easy, just like we've been saying. I mean, it takes work and it takes consistent awareness about it and seeking somebody that has the knowledge and the wisdom to be able to help a person work through that and break it. It's something that hits close to home, not with me, but with people that I know.
Definitely choice. And I think it's recognizing that you have that option. I'm the oldest of 3. There was lots of arguing in our home. And I can remember at about 11 thinking, and this is in the 60s, that who would I go to live with if they separated? I can remember consciously thinking of that. My parents stayed together for a long, like up until my father passed away. So over 50 years. And, but I knew that I didn't want that in my future. I didn't want alcohol in my future. And out of the 3 of us, we drink very little. And we're still married, all of us, almost 50 years. But it was a conscious choice on my behalf. I knew what I did not want and what I would not put up with. And I think there has to be that breaking point where you say, no, I don't want that. Now, where that awareness came from, I don't know. Could be past life, could it be generational? I don't know. But I think that we're stronger than we think we are sometimes, and that we get caught up in things. I was very fortunate in my choices.
Yeah, it's a good question. So actually, it's a good question. Actually, I mean, it's like the nurture versus nature debate with a lot of things, behaviour and even sort of predispositions to health challenges. Is it genetic or is it our environment? If doctors say got predisposition in the family for genetics to cancer, it doesn't mean you can smoke and drink because you're predisposed to anyway. It's just, it's there's also it's a likelihood increased by nurture or nature, and I think that like Janet said, at the end of the day, it has to come down to your choice, because even if there is a predisposition, something, even there is that nature through repetitive behavior for the effect of other people, you have to sort of individually, you got to make the choice of whether you're going to behave in a certain way. As long as you have that has to be the ultimate control is what you choose to do. But I think definitely for me, I think it is a mixture of things. I think it is nurture or nature or predisposition. I think it both things are powerful influences. But ultimately, I think it's the effect of other people on you is and your environment is, to me, I think that's the biggest effect in your life. But you have to make the choice whether you then repeat certain behaviors or take a different path.
There was a big bet made in a movie called Trading Places. You guys might remember that one with Eddie Murphy, right? It's right along with what you're saying there, Nick.
All about that.
It's true, right?
It's true.
And I'll just speak. I don't share a lot of my own personal stories, but I'll share this one because I hadn't really thought about this before, Ashley. Pessimism. My dad was an optimist. My mom was a big-time pessimist, still is. And I grew up in an environment that had a little bit of both, but somehow I gravitated towards my mom's persona in the world, right? Her view of the world of being a pessimist. And it wasn't until I met my wife when I was 28 years old that really opened my eyes to just what kind of a pessimist I am. And it took a lot of work, but I would say that was more of a learned behavior because of the environment I was in with my mom. But again, it was something that it took a lot of work. It took me about 5 years before I was like, okay, I don't always see the dark side of, of the situation anymore. But yeah, that one I would say would argue is more learned. However, I don't know for my mom's, maybe there was something like that in the past, but I know her dad was very optimistic. But her mom, it's interesting now I'm thinking about it. Her mom was a pessimist. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I think also there's like a collective consciousness that we have of learned behaviors. Like I work with a lot of men, and you'd be surprised how many men have this fear around money in their career. Like, what am I going to do? It's like, and I had that for a long time, and I think that gets probably. You think about the generations, and I'm from Canada, so there's a lot of Irish descent. There's the Irish potato famine, and so that there's all these people that were worried about surviving and eating, and then that gets passed down. And so there's a lot of men out there right now that have not learned about the positive things about money. Like money is just an energy. There's an abundant supply of it. Once you tap into that, it can be enlightening. But there's so many collective energies out there that I think we all sometimes absorb, and they aren't really who we are. I mean, they're just thoughts or energy about different things.
It's the egg scenario, Ashley. You've got the yolk and you've got the white. I was a stuffer and I was an aggressor. I was an optimist and I was a pessimist. I've lived both sides of the coin many times. I think a really good question is when you wake up in the morning, are you excited for your day? Do you want to be? Do you want to move past the generational trauma that we've all had? Everyone has had some form of generational trauma, grief. I mean, trauma can be a car accident that you're still recuperating from. Look at the 4 legs of the foundation of wellness: financial, emotional, spiritual, and financial. Wait, did I say that right? Blah, blah, blah. Financial, emotional, spiritual, financial. Where are you out of balance? Right? If you've got a money problem, whether you don't have a positive relationship with money or you're not making enough money, even you got 60 grand in the bank and you're still complaining you don't have enough money, or you don't have enough money to pay the bills at the end of the month, there's more month than there is money left at the end of the month. Where are you at? Where is the imbalance? We can live in a nice, more balanced way. It's like the middle of an Oreo cookie. It's living in that soft space where everything is tastier. That's where we're aiming for.
Like
Oreo cookies, come on.
Yeah,
Some moon pie too, if you like the was it Green Mile where the guy put the moon pie in his mouth
Gross.
and then did that thing? Yeah.
Oh, this conversation has really got my wheels turning. I have been doing some of my own healing, and doing a lot of timeline genealogy kind of stuff. And like my brain, I can tell, is stuck in places. And the biggest thing I keep going back to is, what does the let go look like? What does the release look like? To truly say, that doesn't bother me anymore. I'm not going to get pissed off. I'm not going to let it, elevate my temper and my blood pressure. What does the let go look like? So I find myself in this thought cycle of, I don't know how to let go. So how do you speak to that when somebody doesn't know how to let go?
I'll ask you a question. What do you want it to look like?
Oh gosh. Just peaceful. Like not tight.
And what does peaceful mean to you? What does that look like?
What does it feel like? What does it smell like? Where is that
a
happy
tropical
place?
island somewhere?
That's good though. That's good because you've got a feeling place for what that's like. Yeah. And when you're not there, you'll know that there's a thought, an opinion, a belief. Opinions and beliefs are like a-holes. Everyone's got one. What's yours? What's serving your greatest good?
Right.
There's a really cool exercise I do with clients, and you take a piece of paper and you divide a line in the middle. And this sounds very simple, but sometimes it's the most simple things that can be the most effective.
Yeah.
And you just write down things that bring you peace and love and energy on one side, and all the things that bring you stress of holding on and not letting go on the other side. And then you start to take a look at that and say, okay, what are the things and the activities I need to do to engage and be more present and not hold on? What are the things that I shouldn't do that allow me to let go? And a lot of times what I find with people, it's the simple things like being in nature and going for a walk and connecting with their breath and presence. And when you're doing that, you're not really holding on because you're in the moment. So things like that, I think, can be helpful for someone that has, because I think life is a constant learning of letting go. There's going to be something that comes up and you let it go, and there's something that comes up. So you're constantly, I think all of us here probably have something we're hanging on to right now that we could probably let go of a little bit. So I don't think you're alone in that that mindset or thought process. I think it's a matter of learning things that help you become present, because when you're holding on, you're usually ruminating about something in the future or the past.
And I think I'm going to talk about this from an NLP perspective, because that is probably the biggest challenge that we have, is that somebody wants something, they're doing a behavior they know they shouldn't be doing. They want to be doing something else instead, but they can't see what it's going to look like doing the other thing, because the only thing they know right now is where they're at. So like, for instance, for you, Ashley, because you said some very key words in there, and you're raising that question. And what we work at was what is that thing that's holding you back from making the change? And a lot of times it's, the fear of the unknown is, it's the conscious mind talking. But the term that we use is called secondary gain. In other words, the thing that's holding you back is giving you value, or you wouldn't be doing it. And you're like, that's not serving me consciously, and I'm trying to think of a specific example. I mean, the only thing that's coming to my mind right now is like, say you want to lose weight and you can't lose weight, and then you find yourself going and getting the ice cream at night. All right. Well, why are you doing that when your big desire, your big goal is to lose weight? Eating ice cream isn't going to help you do that, right? Well, there's a secondary gain by eating the ice cream. It gives you comfort, it gives you blah, 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 and eventually it gives you love. Well, if there is a way to get that same comfort and that same love without eating ice cream, would you be ready to make that change? And usually when you can get to the subconscious mind, seeing it from that perspective, you have opened up a doorway that allows, when you do a transformational exercise, the transformation then happens. And here's the point: you can't even remember what it was like thinking the other way. So when you say, when you can't imagine what it would be like, the good news is when you do make that transition, you can't remember what it was like being the other way. And trying to help the mind understand that there is this big transformational thing that's going to happen. You are literally rewiring the neurons in your brain, and you don't think the old way that you used to. And so what I would encourage you to do, Ashley, is to, if you're working with somebody, you're doing your own work, is just to trust the process and know that if you have a desire to be in a different state, that is absolutely possible. And once you are, it's going to be full of love like you've never seen before.
I call it the yabba dabba do.
Yeah,
the yabba. I know Nance are acronyms, right? It's the yabut, the excuses, right? What are you relapsing into? We're all in that same relapse. We think about the chocolate bar before we buy the chocolate bar, but what happened to bring us into the state where we wanted the chocolate bar? Oh my God, my kids, they drive me crazy. I gotta eat the chocolate. Oh my God, my kids drive me crazy. We can go to the park together. I can go for a walk alone. What can I do instead of the yabut? What action can I take? Put the body in motion. Go for a walk. Have a hot bath. Find an element. Earth, wind, fire, and water. Find an element. Grab onto it and enjoy it. Go for a drive with the windows down. Movement, actions. It's somatics in a different form.
Oh, I love that. You know, also a friend of mine's a Buddhist psychotherapist, and he when I was going through anything, he used to have a really cool way of explaining how to get beyond it. So, for example, you're holding on to something, Ashley. I don't know what it is. You don't have to share. It doesn't even matter. But when we hold on to something, our awareness becomes very narrow. So our awareness is on that one thing. So it's like, say someone that's afraid of flying. That's all they're thinking about. Oh my God, I'm afraid of flying. And they think of all the bad things. When we open up our awareness and then we see the airport and the plane and the people and it's almost like you're focusing on right now when you're not letting go of a wave of that ocean. You're just focusing on that one wave. When we expand, and your awareness is very narrowed down. And I've done this in my own life. When we start to expand our awareness and not think of that one thing or the wave and think of the whole entire ocean, that tends to lower or help you let go of that one thing that you're narrowed down on. I don't know if that helps you or not, but that was a really good analogy for me. It's just expanding our awareness and not focusing on that one little thing and just trying to, instead of, right now I'm looking outside and I'm on a lake. If I'm focusing on that lake, that's it. But I can see a tree, I can see a forest, I can see cloud. You know what I mean? So you're expanding your awareness, and that can be very helpful to let go of something that's bothering you.
I've got a friend who's like a coach therapist, and one of the first questions you always ask a client is, what would life be like if your life wasn't dominated by anxiety, or you weren't overwhelmed by stress all the time? What would your life be like? So we get the client to imagine, or tell him what their life would be like if it weren't, their life wasn't dominated by this particular condition they were looking help with. And I think that simple thing of one that that means you can obviously know it is possible, because you can see what you can imagine, you can see what you can think, imagine what your life would be like. So if you can imagine it, it's definitely possible. And I think also then there creates that sort of that visualization of, okay, this is motivation. This is, I can see how my life would be better if I wasn't suffering from this condition. Obviously, it's a journey to get there, but I think it's that it's that, like you said, how do you know when you're there? Well, you've got to imagine what life would be like when you're there. So, and then it's obviously just I think that to me that made a lot of sense. Because if you can't see your life being better free of this thing, I think you'll never really, you'll be struggle harder to get there.
Ashley, there's so much wonderful information here. I like David's drawing your line, but I leave a gap in there a little bit. Okay, from that. So how can I? One of the things that I learned really early on as a young mom Friends of ours were transferred to Germany, and they invited us to come with our kids were all the same age. And I said, I can't afford. My husband had a heart attack at 43. So I changed that to how can I afford? And now we travel all over. And to see, we make up things in our minds all the time. We have visions all the time. How did you and your husband build your business? You had a vision, right? And it's like for a tropical place, watch a movie and then before you go to bed and then dream about it. There's things that have happened in my life that I have asked for, said I wanted to do. And then 5 years later, it'll show up and I'll say to my husband, well, I got to do it because I asked for it and I can't say I can't do it now. And, there's things we can do that. And, but it's how can I? So maybe do your bathroom one night with that bath, like make it like a tropical, you're in a warm pool or a hot tub on a beach. And, it's just draw something up, but we all have that ability. The book that really changed my life after my diagnosis was The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. Wow. And one of the things he said, he was working with this guy and the guy wanted to be a manager in that. And the guy gave him a whole list of reasons why he couldn't. His wife was pregnant. He couldn't go to school at night. He was too busy. He was doing this. And the guy said to him very gently, he says, okay, you've told me all the reasons why you can't. I'll see you in 2 weeks and you can tell me all the reasons why you can.
It's been a while since I've read that book, but I have.
I you know what? That's one part that I try and you know what? We all have stuff that we go through. I'm not perfect, and my life's a pretty darn good looking life compared, but I am a clutterer and I have paperwork everywhere. But I know these times together also, I think, make all of us sort of look at things and encouraged by others saying on how you can and recognize that none of us would be here right now if we hadn't already done some work.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And Janet, you asked Ashley, how would you like it to be? One of the things that we use in NLP again is what we call an evidence procedure, which basically means how will you know when you no longer have that problem, which is basically saying the same thing, just differently. Yeah. And it's really important because how do you know you no longer have the problem, right? I mean, is it a problem? How is it a problem? How will you know when you no longer have the problem? So those are really good questions to be asking.
I like that. Awesome. Well, we are a little bit over. Any final thoughts that anybody wants to share before we get out of here for our Friday?
I just want to thank everybody. I just love being part of this group.
I love hearing from different points of views from different backgrounds. I think it's really, really valuable. And to all the listeners out there, never stop asking questions.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley and Nick, Janet, and Guy for your time. I enjoyed it. One ironic thing or sort of thing I'll add is you said one final thought. Is we're really not our thoughts. You try and remember that we're a witness to our thoughts. Don't get caught up in your stories or your thoughts because really we're not. That's not who we are.
Yeah, it's my final thought is I guess we've all got a story, but how the story ends is up to us. We should be trying to write our own story, and I think it goes back to how do you see, where do you want to be? Where do you want the story to go? Where do you want it to end? Because we shouldn't be a passive person in the story. We should be actively taking where we want to be. But yeah, I love every time get on these shows. I mean, I find everyone here, Guy, David, Janet, Ashley, all inspirational with your own stories you share and your tips and experiences. It always inspires me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Well,
Ashley.
I don't know where Nancy went. Thanks for coming on today, guys, because Adam just threw me into it like usual. He's great at that.
Great job.
But I do want to say, no matter where you fall in generational trauma, that whether you feel like your story is insignificant or something that's significant, it still matters and it can still be classified as a trauma. So don't shrink yourself because it's not what somebody else shares, or it's not significant to somebody else. If it's significant to you, it matters. But thanks for a great show today, everybody. Thank you for joining. If you're watching this later, make sure you like, subscribe, share. We will be back again next week, and Adam will be here as well. And I'm sure we will have our banter back and forth. But have a fabulous weekend, and we will see you next week.
Bye,
Cheers,
everyone.
guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.